You are walking home late in the evening. The market is closing. Wooden stalls creak as merchants pack away onions, smoked fish, and bread that has already gone a little hard around the edges. The air smells like rain, mud, wet horses, and too many people living too close together. Pretty normal medieval evening, honestly. A church bell rings somewhere far away. Slowly, heavy, like the whole town is tired. You keep your head down. That is usually the safest thing to do in the Middle Ages. Do not attract attention. Do not annoy soldiers. Do not insult priests. Do not look suspicious. Which, unfortunately, can mean almost anything. Maybe someone says you stole something. Maybe your neighbor blames you for a missing chicken. Maybe you owe money. Maybe you spoke a little too loudly about taxes at the tavern after your third cup of weak ale. Big mistake. In the medieval world, law is not calm or organized. There are no friendly court letters arriving in the mail. No one explains your rights. No one says, "Sir, you are entitled to legal representation." Usually, two large men simply grab you. And that is exactly what happens. A rough hand lands on your shoulder. You turn around, and before you can even speak, another man twists your arm behind your back. The town guards wear chainmail that jingles softly when they move. One smells strongly of garlic. The other looks like he has not smiled since birth. "Come with us," one says. Not exactly comforting words. You ask what this is about, which is reasonable. But the guards do not seem interested in reasonable things. One of them shrugs. "You'll find out." Which is medieval language for, absolutely nothing good is about to happen. People nearby stop and stare. A woman carrying firewood watches silently. A butcher pauses in the middle of cleaning his knives. Two children whisper to each other while pretending not to look at you. Nobody steps in to help. That would be a terrible idea. In medieval towns, guards had power, local lords had even more power, and ordinary people survived mostly by staying quiet. If someone got arrested, most people assumed one of two things. Either you were guilty, or you annoyed somebody important. Honestly, both could end the same way. The guards drag you through narrow streets lit by torches stuck into iron holders along the walls. Rainwater runs through the gutters beside your feet. Somewhere nearby, a dog growls from inside a wooden alleyway. You try explaining yourself again. Wrong move. One guard suddenly shoves you forward hard enough that you almost fall face-first into the mud. "Save it for the magistrate," he mutters. That sounds official and serious. But in many medieval towns, the magistrate might barely investigate anything at all. Trials could last minutes. Sometimes accusations alone were enough. Evidence was flexible. Very flexible. Especially if you were poor. If you had money, things got easier. Wealthy people could pay fines. They could bribe guards. Sometimes they could even avoid prison entirely. Nobles often lived by a completely different set of rules. But you are not a noble. You are cold, confused, and currently being marched through puddles by two men who look excited to lock someone in a cage. The town square comes into view. Even at night, a few people still wander through it. A drunk man sings badly near a fountain. Someone laughs from inside a tavern glowing with warm candlelight. For one brief second, the place almost feels peaceful. Then you see the prison. It sits beside the old stone courthouse like an afterthought nobody wanted. Thick walls. Tiny windows. Iron bars blackened with rust. No candles visible inside. That feels like a bad sign. A cart stands outside carrying barrels and sacks of grain. But another smell hangs in the air too. Something sour. Rotting straw mixed with human waste. You suddenly realize something important. Medieval prisons are not like modern prisons. There are no exercise yards. No scheduled meals. No clean blankets folded neatly on beds. Most prisons in the Middle Ages are simply holding places for suffering. Some people wait there for trial. Some wait for punishment. Some never leave at all. The guards lead you toward a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron strips. One of them knocks 3 times. A slot opens. A pair of tired eyes stare out. Another one, a voice asks. "Yep." The slot slams shut again. You hear locks clanking open one by one. Slow, metallic, final. The door creaks inward. Warm air does not greet you. Neither does light. Only dampness. The inside smells like wet stone, smoke, sickness, and bodies packed too close together for too long. You hesitate. Reasonable again. The guard behind you is not impressed by your hesitation and pushes you forward. The door slams shut behind you with a deep booming sound that echoes through the corridor. And just like that, the outside world disappears. The prison guard standing inside holds a lantern low near his waist. His beard is gray and uneven. His keys hang from his belt like heavy iron fruit. He studies you for a moment. "You got family?" he asks. You nod carefully. "Good," he says. "Maybe they'll bring food." Not exactly the speech you want to hear from a prison employee. The guard takes your belt, your small coin pouch, and even your shoes. Apparently, medieval prison policy is simple. If you own something, someone stronger will probably take it. You are marched down a narrow hallway underground. Water drips from the ceiling. Somewhere deeper below, a man coughs violently. Then comes screaming. Not loud screaming. Worse. Weak screaming. The kind that sounds tired. You pass cell after cell closed with wooden bars and iron locks. Faces appear briefly in the darkness as prisoners watch you pass. Hollow eyes. Dirty hair. Blank expressions. One man laughs quietly to himself for no reason at all. Another simply stares at the wall. You finally reach an open cell. Straw covers part of the floor. Most of it looks wet. A bucket sits in one corner. You immediately understand what the bucket is for and immediately wish you did not. The guard lifts the lantern slightly. In you go. You step inside slowly. The door closes. The lock clicks. And for the first time that night, you understand something clearly. You are not going home tomorrow. Maybe not next week either. At first, you think the darkness is the worst part. It is everywhere. Not normal nighttime darkness either. This is thick darkness. Dungeon darkness. The kind that feels alive somehow. The kind that makes you forget what sunlight even looks like after a while. You stand still inside your cell while your eyes slowly adjust. The straw beneath your feet crunches softly. Something moves underneath it. You decide not to think about that. Probably for the best. A torch flickers far down the hallway, barely lighting the corridor. Most of the prison remains hidden in shadow. You can hear water dripping somewhere deeper underground. Drip, drip, drip. After about 10 minutes, you already hate that sound. Across the corridor, somebody snores loudly. Nearby, another prisoner mutters in their sleep. Somewhere farther away, chains scrape against stone. Then comes coughing. So much coughing. It echoes through the dungeon like everybody here shares the same dying lungs. You sit carefully against the wall. The stone is freezing cold and wet enough to soak through your clothes almost immediately. Comfort does not exist here. In the Middle Ages, prisons are not built for humans to live in. They are built to store humans until something worse happens to them. Execution, torture, debt collection. Maybe all three if the week is going badly. And your week is definitely going badly. A rat suddenly runs across the edge of the cell. You jerk backward. The rat does not care. Honestly, the rat probably lives here more comfortably than you do. Morning arrives eventually, though it is hard to tell at first. No sunlight reaches your cell directly. The only clue is the faint gray glow creeping through a tiny slit high in the wall. The prison slowly wakes up around you. Chains rattle. Men groan. Someone begins crying quietly. A guard stomps through the corridor carrying a lantern and a wooden stick, banging the bars as he passes. Up, he shouts. Nobody sounds excited about this. You stand stiffly, your back aching already. You spent the entire night half sleeping against stone while trying not to touch whatever was living inside the straw pile. A prisoner nearby spits onto the floor. New one, he says, noticing you. His beard looks like it lost a fight with a fire. One eye is cloudy white. What are you in for? You open your mouth. Then pause. Because honestly, you still are not completely sure. The prisoner laughs when you fail to answer. That means debt, he says. Or taxes. Apparently confusion itself is suspiciously common here. The guard returns carrying a bucket filled with water and another bucket filled with something pretending to be food. Breakfast arrives. And somehow it already looks exhausted. The guard hands chunks of dark bread through the bars. Hard bread. Bull bread. Bread that could probably survive a catapult attack. You bite into it carefully. It tastes like sadness and sawdust. The water is not much better. Slightly brown. Probably collected from somewhere nearby. You decide not to ask questions because you truly do not want the answers. Around you, prisoners eat silently. Nobody talks much during meals. Mainly because everyone is too hungry. And because talking wastes energy. As the hours pass, you begin noticing more details about the dungeon. The walls are covered with scratches. Tallies counting days. One section reads, "Still alive after 43 days." Underneath it, another prisoner carved. "Lucky." That feels deeply unhelpful. The prison itself stretches farther underground than you first realized. Guards move constantly through twisting hallways carrying keys and lanterns. Occasionally, they drag prisoners with them. Some return later. Some do not. You quickly learn there are different parts of the prison. The upper cells are slightly better. Rich prisoners sometimes stay there if they can pay enough. They might get blankets, candles, actual beds. Imagine that luxury. A bed. Meanwhile, the lower dungeon cells are where everybody else goes. Especially poor prisoners. Especially prisoners nobody cares about. You are definitely in the lower section. Lucky. By midday, the dungeon smells even worse. Too many bodies. Too little air. The bucket in your corner becomes impossible to ignore. Guards rarely empty them. Sometimes prisoners must do it themselves if allowed out briefly. Sometimes not. Disease spreads fast in places like this. Very fast. A thin man in the next cell introduces himself as Tomas. He has been imprisoned for nearly 2 months after stealing salted fish from a market stall. "One fish," he says quietly. "Not even a big fish." He stares at the floor. "My children were hungry." You ask if he will be released soon. Tomas laughs. Not a happy laugh. "Released." That is all he says. And somehow that one word feels heavier than the stone walls around you. Hours crawl by slowly underground. Without sunlight, time begins falling apart. You count drips of water just to stay focused. At some point, shouting erupts farther down the corridor. Guards rush past carrying clubs. A prisoner screams. Metal clashes against stone. Then silence. Complete silence. Nobody asks questions afterward. That might be the scariest thing about the dungeon. People stop reacting. Suffering becomes normal here. A man coughing blood in the corner? Normal. Someone weeping all night? Normal. Rats chewing on old straw beside sleeping prisoners? Also normal. The dungeon changes people quickly. Even you can feel it happening already. Yesterday you worried about embarrassment when the guards grabbed you in public. Today you are mainly worried about touching the walls too long because they feel wet in ways walls should never feel wet. Progress? Technically. Later that evening, a priest walks through the corridor carrying a candle. Some prisoners pray as he passes. Others turn away. One prisoner desperately grabs the bars asking the priest to tell his wife he is alive. The priest nods softly. But after he leaves, another prisoner whispers. He says that to everybody. The torchlight grows dimmer as night returns. Or maybe it never really left. You curl against the wall again, pulling damp straw around yourself for warmth. The dungeon grows colder after sunset. Wind whistles faintly through cracks somewhere above. Then you hear it. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Several guards approach carrying lanterns. They stop outside a nearby cell. Keys rattle. The door creaks open. "Get up," a guard says coldly. A prisoner begs immediately. Not loud begging. Tired begging. The kind that already knows it will fail. The guards drag him into the corridor anyway. You watch through the bars as his fingers scrape desperately across the stone floor. Then he disappears around the corner into the deeper part of the dungeon. Toward the rooms nobody talks about. Toward whatever waits below. The corridor falls silent again. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. And for the first time since arriving, you realize something terrible. This prison is not just holding prisoners. It is slowly teaching everybody inside how to lose hope.